John, what's happening, brother? How we doing?
So I do a lot of traveling for work, and my wife and I need some help strategizing and getting the tools to be better when we're apart. My job has me traveling all over the state, out of state, for surprise trips of a day at a time up to a week at a time. I've got conferences all across the country and classes that I have to take all over the place. And whenever we spend time apart, it's difficult. I mean, she's great, and I think she thinks that I'm pretty great too. And we talk a lot, but sometimes it's hard for me to focus on my job. Sometimes it's, just lonely being in a hotel room looking at the ceiling. Are there ways that we can, or are there things that we can do to make the most and really, try and get through these times? I hate feeling like I'm just, having to trudge through. Is there a way that we can make this time better when we're apart?
Man, that's an awesome question. I appreciate that. Let's think through that together. First, what kind of work do you do?
I'm in cybersecurity.
Cybersecurity. And so even with the shutdown this year, they've had you traveling all over and still attending things and learning things and being in people's drawers and whatnots?
Less than usual. I work a lot with the cameras and door won't close or door won't open part of it.
Yep.
So, if the door won't close, I got to go out there and close the door.
Gotcha. Okay. And tell me about this lovely wife of yours. Does she vocalize that she doesn't like your job? Do you just sense it on her?
No, it's
her
less
opinion?
that she doesn't like my job, and it's much more of a distance thing.
Okay. What is it about this job that makes you want to keep this gig?
I love it.
Okay.
I like from the it's what I'm supposed to be doing.
Okay.
Ever since I was a little kid, I would be eating waffles in the morning and getting on the computer and learning. Like it's a dream job.
Gotcha.
Really.
What's the dream part about it? The cybersecurity part of it, the internet's part of it, solving problems part of it. What's the dream job part of it?
It's the solving problems, and sometimes it's more difficult for me to say that than others when you're just a little bit deep into the problems. But man, I just love it. It's a calling. I'd like to help people, and I like to get online and fix problems and work through stuff and be able to provide solutions to people immediately, and seeing that immediate result. It feels really, really good, and I'd like to think that I'm okay at it. I get paid to do it at least.
So I'm going to tell you something hard that I just heard, okay? When you were first called and you were talking about your marriage and your wife, and you love her and she's good, you said all the right things. You said all the right things that were good and noble. And then when you talked about your job, you came alive. Is that indicative of your relationship?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I'll be honest with you. It's easy for me to get chatty about my job.
Okay.
I'm pretty close to the chest about my relationship. It's actually pretty difficult for me to talk to people about it. And that's part of the reason why it's been tough for the both of us, because I'm going on these trips and I feel like I'm doing the same thing, and it's hard for me to reach out to somebody and ask them, I've got this issue.
Yeah.
And how am I supposed to address it? I'm used to just fixing things as I go and knowing the solution and just making it happen.
Right. So at the end of the day, you talk about your job as your calling, something you've wanted since you were a little kid. And I want you to put that same sort of existential weight on your marriage, and specifically that woman that you promised yourself to for the rest of your life. And so I want you to have very clear in your heart and mind that if it ever comes to a point that you've got to choose between the two, that's going to be a difficult but clear-cut decision, and that will fall to your wife. And I want you to start there, because anything else is going to be strategy, and marriage can't survive on strategy. Strategy is a part of it, right? So you're calling and saying, what can I do in a hotel? Well, man, they've got FaceTime. There's got all kinds of mutual games. They got all kinds of stuff you can do. But at the end of the day, your wife has to feel as valuable as this job is. And maybe she does. She has to feel as though not only is your job a calling, something you've thought about since you were a kid, but that she is your purpose. She is why you get up and will get up in the middle of the night and catch a 4 a.m. flight to go fix a door. Right?
Yeah.
She is. And I can't shake the fact, John, that it sounds like there's a values misalignment here. Okay? She has permission to struggle with you being gone, the same as you have permission to struggle being gone. What it sounds like y'all need to do is get in a room together. Maybe y'all have already done this, but get in a room together and talk openly about what this job, what the travel is costing you. And maybe nothing. Maybe it's just some frustration. It's annoying, right? It's just, man, I'm gone a lot and I'm struggling with it. Or maybe it's way deeper than you think. Maybe if you sit down with her and y'all start going through, she's going to open up to you in a way that's going to be really hard. Or maybe this shutdown, you've traveled less and you've realized, this is my calling. I love this job. I love problem solving. I love doing it on the interwebs. But man, I love being around my wife. I haven't been around her this much ever. And I love it. And the thought of getting back on the road is starting to make me real uncomfortable. And what I'll tell you, John, is millions of people are reconsidering their profession and their quote-unquote calling. I work with some of the best IT folks on planet Earth, and they go home every day at 5 o'clock. And they make great money, and they work their butts off, and we are recruiting them all of the time. And so I'm telling you, there are security jobs, there are IT jobs, there are internet jobs that don't always require hopping on a plane and heading off and solving that sort of problem. There may be that you are going to find a job that's different than the one you have, but in a similar field that still feels like the calling is still meeting that need with you. In terms of things you can do, man, it's all about intentionality. It's knowing what is your wife missing when you're gone besides your physical presence. It could be you're always writing letters to one another that you can hold and tangibly touch, that you have some rules and regulations, and I say rules loosely. You're invited to one another, that you're always going to step out of whatever meeting you are at these intervals throughout a day and talk to each other on FaceTime. You're going to make sure you FaceTime each other, watch a movie together at night. All of this is a distant second and third and fourth to actually being in the same room together. But it's just strategies. I actually like the idea of watching a movie together with the other person on FaceTime, even though it's kind of weird. But who knows, man? But it starts with you guys sitting down and figuring it out. Again, I don't want to keep circling back and saying the same thing over and over, John, but there's something else here that we could talk about for hours and hours that sounds like there's a disconnect between you and your wife and this spiritual calling you have with your work. So tonight I want you to turn all the electronics off in the house. I want you to sit down with your wife, and I want you to have a hard conversation with her. Maybe not a hard one, but a direct one, an open one, an everything on the table conversation about how much you love her, about how much you love spending time with her. And I want you to ask her to be vulnerable with you about how she feels about you traveling, how she feels about you being gone, how she feels about you being home more this season. And then come up with a plan together, co-create a plan together of what travel's going to look like, what distance is going to look like, and is this actually the right job for you long term? Because, man, you may have been called to this job, but you promised that young woman you for the rest of your life.